Hi there, folks. This is episode 0 of HIMYM Superfans. Hi there, Chris Venezia.
Hello, James Hamilton.
And hello to all the new How I Met Your Mother fans out there. This is the very first episode of our podcast where we get all freaky-deaky about How I Met Your Mother.
And we are going to ruin this show for you.
And ruin it like that friend who notices things about a show that you've never noticed before. You know the feeling. That friend tells you something that makes you think differently about a show that you love and you thought you knew everything about.
And that's what we're going to do for the first season of How I Met Your Mother. Each week in the podcast, we'll discuss an episode of the show, but today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about the series as a whole, so there will be spoilers ahead.
If you've downloaded this episode, you probably wanted to know why the heck would these guys do a podcast about a show that's no longer on the air?
Wait, why are we doing this? So why would we do a podcast about a show that's not on the air anymore? And for me, I actually didn't come up with this idea as much as I would like to say that I did or steal it from you. This was actually something that you told me about, James, that you had worked on. It was a recording that you made of a sync-up commentary of the pilot, where you were watching the pilot as you were talking about it. And you sent it to me, and I loved it. And as I was listening to it, there were enough pauses that I started interjecting my own thoughts and sometimes like answering your questions. You would say like, I think this is a reference to another part in the show. And I was like, it's from this episode, and I was very excited. And then when I told you how much I enjoyed it, I was pleased to find out that you were willing to let this be a 2-person operation.
Yeah, I originally thought we would be doing commentaries for the show because I love the show so much. I've watched it on DVD half a dozen times, and one of the things I love about DVDs is you get to hear those commentary tracks from the creators and the actors and the writers, but they almost never have commentary on every episode. It's usually 2 or 3 episodes per disc, and I wanted more content. I thought that if I could deliver that content to other superfans like me, that maybe that would be another way that they could enjoy the show for yet another time, and just watch it all over again, this time with a little bit more insight.
Yeah, and somebody's insight that didn't work on the show, like a fan insight, which I think is a good perspective to bring to it. So, even though the show has ended, it was a significant part of my life. I would watch it every week, often during the episode, or at least by the end of the episode, I could expect texts from friends that were also fans of the show. The text usually went along the lines of, "Did you just see that?" This wasn't just a TV show to me. I was invested in these characters and their lives. When something happened to them, it was like it was happening to me. And I think the reason for that is that the characters in the show were closer to my life than many other shows. I could see so much of these characters and their thoughts and their actions and their struggles in myself and in my friends. And those same friends who texted me about tonight's episode felt the same way. It was like a show for us.
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling that it was a community experience watching the show. At least with our group of friends, we had friends who we lived together, and then we all moved apart, and then some of us came back, and while the show was still on the air, we were all watching the show no matter where we were in the country. So we could exchange those text messages and Facebook updates and the inside jokes and the quotes from the show. And we'd feel like our friends were with us again, even if we were separated by hundreds or thousands of miles.
Yeah.
It was like a sense of community just watching the show.
Yeah, in a way, even though people can move away or grow apart, it was one thing that we all still had in common.
Another thing I like about the show is it's infinitely quotable. I keep saying, "Oh, this is a terrible lie. I'm just gonna bail." That comes to mind whenever I'm trying to make friends laugh by telling an obviously fake story, and I don't have an ending for it. I come up with a good idea. I sometimes get on a roll, but I can really think of anything an ending. So I just ended with, "This is a terrible lie. I'm just gonna bail."
And that's from the episode where, let's see, in the story, Ted's got all the stuff back.
Right, it's the episode stuff. And he's trying to tell Robin that she can't go into the apartment because the floors are gone.
Yep, the floors are gone.
Had them cleaned.
The first thing that he thought of. For years, I would do the major and general line, and sometimes do the salute, like something like that's a major problem. Major problem? I would do that. It's less so now because, much like in the show, it's more fun if someone does it with you.
Yeah.
If you're the only one doing it, then you're just that guy. But I did like doing those a lot. Anything that Barney says, just about, is quotable, although I often choose not to. Because then it's stuff like, Daddy's home. And then I feel like a super creep.
83% of the time, that works out pretty well.
That's true.
True story.
Yeah, and everything's legendary, and wait for it. Barney... Neil Patrick Harris really pulled that off, where like in other shows, you see the character that sort of does that, and they're like a doofus. And nobody cares about their quotes and sayings. They don't catch on. They're just not delivered well. But everything Barney says is funny.
Yeah.
And that's...
Even in How I Met Your Mother, later in the series, they come up with the catchphrase for Lily, "Where's the poop?"
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that I don't want to remind people of something scatological constantly, but that just really didn't work.
I don't know anybody that worked for really well, that loved it, and that did come back. They must have thought the audience liked the "Where's the poop, Robin?" Because that does come back. I like saying, if anybody claims that I'm a robot, or that anybody else I know is a robot and they don't have feelings, I like to do the feelings inside. Oh no! I wish you could see that, audience, because I just did a really terrible robot while I was saying that.
I've never seen someone dance the robot while sitting.
Yes. Not anything like that guy who was in the Let's Go to the Mall video, who was a professional robot dancer.
Yeah. That reminds me of one of the things I picked up from the show is whenever the character said something to, Lily would say to Ted, "You're being a real doofus," and Ted would say, "You're being a real doofus," or sometimes it would be like, "You're being a real stick in the mud," and the reply would be, "Well, your mom's a real stick in the mud," or something like that. And so that comes to me like if you called me a robot, I'm like, "You're a robot." Yeah,
they're often childish in the show, and so is James and I. So we can relate to that.
They mix in the comedy with these touching emotional moments. That makes me care about the characters more than if it was just joke, 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 joke. You know what I mean?
I do. It makes them human. It makes them human beings. Not only do they have good times in life, but they also have struggles.
Yeah, Marshall struggles with unemployment. Ted and Robin and Barney all struggle with their love and sex lives, and even the loss of a parent and the birth of a child.
Yep. There's a lot of things that show up in this show that are very real, and I'm not surprised after listening to the creators talk about where they get their inspiration in their writer's room and how all the writers bring their ideas to the table. I mean, these characters are human because the writing team was so good. I also really liked the heavier moments, as I call them. Like, nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Great episode.
Ted is not a saint, and neither am I. So it actually makes him more relatable. I mean, I can disagree with what he's doing, but if I was in his shoes, would I be making the same decision? I would at least be struggling with the same decision.
That's a really good episode for me because it shows that Ted is not this mythical hero character, that he's a flawed human being. He's a red-blooded male, and he has urges or his needs, and sometimes they conflict with his sense of morality.
Yeah, I like the idea that he's not a hero, and that episode happens in season 1. We'll be doing a commentary of that episode, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I like that none of the characters are saints. They're all flawed. They're all flawed human beings. I have actually cried watching this show.
Yeah, me too.
I have to admit that. Not usually when there's people around, because then they just dry up real fast.
Sure,
but
suck them back in.
If I'm watching it by myself and it's one of those really emotional episodes like Change of Heart, yeah, I might have to release a tear or two.
Yeah, I've definitely cried. Most recently on the How Your Mother Met Me episode, at the end of it where she was singing La Vie en Rose. Again, while we were watching it together, I sucked them right back up in my tear ducts.
Right.
But at home alone, I could let it out, and that happens more than a few times.
Yeah.
And as much as they have these heavier moments, like you said, they're not afraid to break the structure of the show and just have fun. Like when they do the Subway Wars, they'll show the characters split up and try to get to the steakhouse at the same time, and or Zura False, where Barney is retelling a story that happened to another character, and he makes it completely different and made up, or any of the other Barney fantasies.
Yeah, it's true. Subway Wars is one of my favorites because that's the origins of Marshall versus the Machines.
Marshall versus the Machine. Thank you.
3 Days of Snow is another one that does storytelling in a non-traditional way, where it has the three stories and they're told separately, and if you find out that they're not even told in the right order.
And they mess with the timeline a lot. They tell a lot of flashbacks to earlier in the characters' lives and flash forwards to moments in the future. It's just fun that they don't take the show too seriously.
It's also a fun moment when they do a different opening credits. The majority of the episodes are going to be the same opening credits, but in the episode Hopeless, they play as a band.
Right.
And in the episode 46 Minutes, it has the Russian theme, and Barney has his own theme song when he decides he's the leader of the
Barney's
group.
the new leader of the gang. I really like that one. That was also featuring stripper Lily and New Marshall.
Right. So on to why Season 1.
Yeah.
My answer for that is it's my favorite season. There's no season that I dislike, but some lack the magic of Season 1 to me.
Yeah, I agree. There's just something about the first season. I think it's the element of mysticism, or magic, like you said, and it's the season that sets up two themes that I notice running throughout the entire series. That's the theme of eternal optimism and timing is a bitch. Regarding the theory of eternal optimism, I see that most often with Ted and his search for the one. And despite his numerous setbacks, some involving Krav Maga, and overwhelming odds, like, say, dating your doctor, or just common sense, Ted is always optimistic that the next relationship or the current relationship is going to work out. It's going to be the one.
And the audience knows from the pilot that this eternal optimism pays off, because Ted does meet the mother. He has kids that he's telling the story to. So it's sometimes helpful to remember that when you're watching the show and watching all of Ted's struggles, as he's eternally optimistic, and the odds are so against him that he should... most people would just give up.
Right, yes. And the only obstacle in his way is really timing, and that's the other theme that keeps showing up. Timing is a bitch. I mean, we just did the commentary for the pilot, and if Robin had been ready for a long-term relationship at the time of the storyline in the pilot, then maybe they would have gotten together then, because they were a really good match in the pilot, and for the first couple of episodes, it seemed like, if Robin was ready, if the timing was right, then maybe they would have gotten together then.
Because the only thing that you need other than timing is chemistry.
Yeah.
Which they do have. In the episode The Best Man in Season 7, Ted talks about how he stopped believing. He stopped being eternally optimistic. He's grown cynical. And that believing is what makes the show great. To me, the believing is the magic. That episode also starts with future Ted telling his kids that timing is everything, which is the theme in the show that you're talking about. And it's in that episode that Robin agrees with you that timing is a bitch. And it's also in this episode that she says the only other thing that you need is chemistry.
Another important theme is set up later in the series, but I see it throughout the series. It's something future Ted says. He says, it's the story of how I became the man I had to become to be able to meet your mother. To me, that's referring to that last bit of growing up that you have to do in your late 20s and early 30s. And that's certainly true for Ted. Like, if he had met the mother at any of the points where their lives sort of intersected, if you remember the season 9 episode, How Your Mother Met Me, they revealed all these times that Ted almost ran into the mother. And if he had met Tracy at that point, then maybe things wouldn't have worked out because he wasn't the man that he had to become.
That's true, because every failure is an opportunity to learn, and every experience is preparation for the next experience. And you're right, there are plenty of times that he almost met Tracy, but she wasn't ready either.
There's so many great episodes in season 1, but if I had to pick a favorite, I'd have to say The Duel, which features the sword fight, of course, with that actually leaves Lily in the hospital.
Yep, she is frequently injured by Marshall. My favorite episode is the pineapple incident.
Damn it, Trudy, get to the pineapple!
It's the first episode I ever saw, so I wasn't watching it from the beginning, I just caught it on TV. But it had everything that I wanted. It had mystery and interesting characters. Ted stops thinking and starts doing. Daddy's home. Is Carl a vampire?
Don't know. Never find out.
Barney sleeps in the bathtub. Ted has on his arm written, "I'm Ted. If lost, please call." We find out that karaoke means empty orchestra. And it has Trudy, played by Danica McKellar. And it sets up the episode Third Wheel, which is the episode that gives us the three-way belt, which is just fun for the whole family.
Yeah. I especially love that Carl, the bartender, gets some more development in that episode. That he's the guy whose number is written on Ted's arm, or at least maybe the bars. And it just shows that Carl's at least aware of these characters and what regulars they are, and he cares about them a little bit, at least.
Yeah, it tickles. Yeah, I do like that. I mean, Carl cares about them. They're like the best patrons at the bar. We find out in another episode that the owner knows them, even if they don't know the owner. So, yeah, he cares. It's sweet.
So let's get to the cast. I think the cast is definitely one of the strongest elements in this series, and definitely one of the reasons why it's been so successful.
I agree. If you watch any of the outtakes on the DVD sets, then you see just how close this group was, how much fun that they had. They look like they're having just as much fun making it as it was to watch.
Yeah, and I saw in one of those behind-the-scenes videos that they said that they made it an effort to become friends and to recognize that they're here making a comedy. They should have fun off camera as much fun as they're having on camera. So it starts with the lead, obviously, Josh Radnor, who I didn't know before this, but from the pilot, Josh makes it apparent that he is just perfect for this role.
I do love the monologue outside of Robin's apartment about how he thinks he'd be a good husband.
Yeah, Josh has a couple of movies out, but I'm afraid he'll always be Ted Mosby to me.
Yeah, that's true. We did have a few familiar faces, though. We had Allison Hannigan from the American Pie movies.
The flute girl.
Yep. And I actually think of her more of Lily from How I Met Your Mother than I do from the American Pie movies now.
And Jason Segel from Freaks and Geeks. And any movie with Judd Apatow.
Yes. Kobe was on a show called Veritas that did not last long. And I didn't recognize her when I first started watching How I Met Your Mother. But when I looked up her IMDb page, I saw that she had done that. And I had seen it, but I don't know, I guess the show just didn't last long enough for me to remember.
Maybe it was only on in Canada.
It could be. I also do remember watching NPH on Doogie Howser.
There were so many guest stars. Britney Spears, Danica McKellar you mentioned. The actor who played Ranjit is Marshall Manesh. You've seen him in many, many shows. And Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, I had to go back and look that up. It's actually a really good story. He got the part by winning an auction for a charity, but refused to have any lines.
Yeah, whether or not it's because he was just too busy to learn them, or he just didn't want to take screen time away from the other actors. We'll never know.
We also had John Lithgow, who plays Barney's dad.
Oh, I always remember him as the villain in Cliffhanger and the dad in Third Rock from the Sun.
He's also one of the best villains on Dexter. So if you have any Dexter fans out there, I know you remember the Trinity Killer.
And there was someone else who was important to the show. What was her name? Some lady, big giant eyes, macaroni,
Allison Hannigan.
Mucolono.
We already talked about Allison. You must be talking about Kristen Milioti.
Oh, Kristen Milioti. Yeah.
Yes, she's one of the, well, I guess guest stars, but she joins the cast as like a main character in the 9th season. She's also in the season 8 finale. But she is the only side character, or, I don't know, non-recurring character for the whole series that gets more episodes than Ranjit.
Right, yeah.
I think the choice for Kristen Milioti was a good one. You know, I think that they picked somebody. Well, I'm guessing part of the requirements was that she be able to sing and play a ukulele.
Yeah.
That was something that they wanted to have happen. But even if she couldn't do that, they might have still picked her. She's a very good actress. Really, I mean, now, you know, with hindsight bias, I couldn't imagine anybody else being in that role.
Yeah, she obviously had to be young and beautiful, but they also picked a petite actress, and she just embodies the sort of innocence. She's almost like a fairy, almost ethereal in her essence, and I think that worked out well, considering that by this point in the series, you know, the mother is mythological. You know, it's like, when are we going to meet the mother already?
Yeah,
so.
It's some pretty big shoes to fill, and she did it really well. She seemed like she just fit into the group really well, and that's the writing. That's not even the actress, but Kristen herself seemed to play off of the other actors, just like she had been on the show for 9 years.
Yeah, and they did get to put her in the same scenes with Josh Radnor quite a bit, with playing around with the timeline, and they had great chemistry.
Even though it did actually take a few twists and turns, like with them having dated 7 years before getting married.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny, because they reached like a point that almost felt like what does it matter?
Right,
you know, kind of thing. We're together forever. It doesn't. I don't know what's a ceremony, especially if it can't be done in a French castle. I'd get married tomorrow in a White Castle.
So that's it. If you want to tell us what you think, email us at himymsuperfans@gmail.com, or join our Facebook group, HIMYM Superfans, and leave us a message there.
If you like the show, the best way to help us out is to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. You don't have to write a review. Just give us the 5 stars. It really helps us with getting discovered and helps us grow our audience so we can keep making the show.
So that's it for our introduction, folks. Go ahead and download the pilot episode now, and we'll have a new episode for you every week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.